I invited my ex to my husband's birthday because I wanted witnesses. The thing is, I did not want a party. I wanted a test. One loud man. One quiet husband. One room full of people ready to see who looked smaller. I thought my husband would swallow the humiliation like he always did. By the end of his birthday toast, nobody in that room could look at me the same way. My name is Simone Vale. I was 34, and I worked as a senior interior brand consultant for people who wanted their rooms to look stronger than they were. The thing is, I was good at that, because I understood placement before I understood honesty. 2 fabric walls, 1 black candle. And of course, I believed a room could tell people who mattered before anyone opened their mouth. That afternoon, I was arranging a birthday table for a client who wanted masculine but intimate, which meant dark glass, low flowers, and chairs spaced close enough to suggest warmth without forcing it. Talia stood by the velvet sample wall with her arms crossed, watching me move 1 black candle 3 inches to the left. She said Elias would probably bring a spreadsheet to his own birthday if I let him. I laughed before I decided whether the joke was cruel. That was how it started with me then. My face often arrived before my judgment. Elias came in 10 minutes later with coffee in one hand and a tiny package from the shoe repair shop in the other. He had remembered the broken heel cap on my black pumps because I had mentioned it while half asleep 2 mornings before. He kissed my cheek, set the coffee down, and asked if the fixture above the display had always leaned like that. That was my husband. 7 years together, 3 married, and he could enter any room and find the loose screw before finding the woman who wanted to be admired. He took a screwdriver from the storage drawer and fixed it while Talia kept talking about the client table. Years before, his hands like that had saved me. My first major showroom installation had failed the night before a launch. Elias drove over after midnight, rebuilt the back panel, and left before the owner came in. I got praised for saving the project. He never corrected anyone. Back then, that quiet loyalty felt like love. Now it looked like background work. When Talia left, Elias wiped his hands on a cloth and asked softly if something had changed between us. He said I sounded different around my friends lately. What he meant was that he missed something. What I heard was that he wanted me to manage his feelings before I finished managing my own rooms. I told him nothing had changed. I said work was heavy and birthdays made people dramatic. My phone lit up on the sample table. Cole Mercer. Elias saw only the name before I turned the screen down. That night, Talia told me maybe Elias needed to see what a man with fire looked like. The wine bar near the studio smelled like orange peel, wet coats, and polished wood that had seen too many women explain why they were not unhappy. Talia had picked the corner booth because she said corner booths made bad ideas sound private. The thing is, she always knew how to make danger look like style. Cole's message sat open on my phone between us. He had written that I looked like someone who should never stand beside a quiet man. Not a cruel sentence on its own. Not even a serious one if you wanted to save yourself. But it had landed where Elias's careful love had stopped landing. Talia read it twice and smiled into her glass. She said Cole remembered how to make a woman feel visible. She said Elias probably made me feel safe, but safe was a chair, not a pulse. I told her not to make my marriage sound like furniture. Then I looked around the wine bar and decided the lighting was kind to me, which meant I was already listening. 2 glasses. 1 message. No clean reason to answer. Cole had been my boyfriend for less than 5 months before Elias. He was broad-shouldered, loud, and easy to photograph in crowded rooms. Back then, I thought that meant confidence. Later, after he started making every night about who had looked at him wrong, I called him exhausting and left him for the kind of man who checked tire pressure before long drives. Elias was the better man. I knew that. The problem was that better did not always turn the room. Talia said some men only showed strength when another man entered the picture. She said it like a theory, not an attack. That was how she worked. She wrapped sharp things in language that sounded almost professional. I told her Elias was not weak. She asked why I kept saying that like I was trying to convince the table. The birthday dinner had already been planned at Ardent Room, a private restaurant space with brass lamps, dark walls, and a dessert station that always smelled like burnt sugar. Elias had said he wanted something small. I had made it larger because small birthdays looked sad in photos. Talia was coming. Naomi was coming. Mara, Elias's younger sister, was coming because Elias loved her, and because she had never fully liked me after a family dinner where I joked that her brother loved like a hotel manager. I told myself inviting Cole would be harmless. Birthdays were public. Old connections were not crimes. A woman could have a past without her husband treating it like evidence. But when I typed Cole's name into the guest list, my thumb paused. That was the choice. Not the dinner. Not the toast later. Not the video. The guest list. The small blue cursor blinking after his name while Talia watched me from across the booth. She asked if I was actually doing it. I said I was only making the room interesting. Talia laughed, but her laugh had too much relief in it. Her own life was calm in a way she pretended to love. A careful apartment, a careful boyfriend. A job where she approved fabric orders and acted like she had not once wanted more. She liked my edges because they made her feel close to a fire without burning her hands. Cole replied in less than a minute. He said he would not miss seeing the famous husband. Famous. That word made Elias sound ridiculous before he even entered the room. At home, the kitchen light was too white. It made every glass on the counter look accused. Elias was rinsing a pan, sleeves rolled, hair damp from the shower. His phone was near the cutting board, open to a birthday reminder from the restaurant. He had added notes about Naomi's allergy and Mara not liking cilantro. Care. Again. Care in bullet points. My phone lit up before I could put it in my bag. Cole's name appeared. Elias turned his head. Not fast. Just enough. He asked why Cole Mercer was suddenly messaging me about his birthday. He named the guest list. He named the notification. He named the way I had turned the phone over at the studio. Specific. Factual. One clean question placed on the counter. What he meant was that the shape of the night had begun to scare him. What I heard was that he wanted to inspect my life like one of his commercial buildings. I told him that if one invitation made him feel threatened, maybe the problem had existed before Cole. I said I was allowed to invite people without filling out an emotional permit. I said birthdays were supposed to be fun, and that he made even fun feel like risk assessment. He looked at the pan in his hand and set it upside down on the drying rack. That was Elias when hurt reached him. He gave an object a place because he could not yet give pain a sentence. He said he was not threatened. He said he was asking because I had once told him Cole made rooms unsafe when he wanted attention. That was true. Worse, it was my own sentence returned to me. I told him people changed. I told him I had changed too. He said he could see that. The quiet after that had edges. Naomi saw the group chat the next morning. She sent one message asking if Elias knew Cole was coming. I answered with a heart and no words. Naomi did not press, but her name stopped appearing under Talia's laughing reactions. By Friday, the invitation had stopped being a joke and started becoming the point. Ardent Room always looked expensive in a way that made people sit straighter. Brass lamps threw soft light over dark green walls, and the dessert station near the back sent out the warm smell of burnt sugar every time a server passed. The thing is, I trusted rooms like that. They made cruelty look like confidence if you dressed it well enough. I wore red. I told Elias it was because birthdays needed colour. Of course, that was only half true. The dress was for the room. It was for Talia's raised eyebrow, for Cole's first look, for the small shift that happens when people decide a woman still has gravity. Elias wore the black shirt I liked and the black leather watch I had bought him that morning. He had said he did not need anything. I said a man should have one thing on his wrist that looked like a decision. He smiled when he opened it. A quiet smile. He fastened it carefully and thanked me as if the gift were private. Private. That was often the problem. Mara arrived first and hugged Elias longer than she hugged me. Naomi came with a bottle of wine and a careful smile. Talia kissed both my cheeks and told me I looked dangerous. Julian, Cole's friend, drifted in behind her with his phone already in his hand because he filmed every night like evidence for a life nobody had asked to review. Cole arrived late enough for everyone to notice. He came in laughing, his coat open, his voice already filling the hallway. He kissed my cheek too close to the corner of my mouth and said the place looked like me. Then he looked at Elias and said he had heard a lot about the famous husband. Elias shook his hand and thanked him for coming. No challenge, no edge, no fire. I hated that I hated it. Dinner began with polite talk. Elias asked Naomi about her new apartment. He remembered Mara's work deadline. He thanked the server by name after reading it from the small brass badge. Cole told a story about a rooftop party where someone had tried to start a fight, and he had handled it by standing up slowly. Talia laughed. Julian kept his phone low, not exactly recording, not exactly away. Cole's stories made space around him. Elias's kindness filled gaps nobody noticed. That was the comparison I had wanted, though I would not have said it that way then. When Cole told a story from the months we dated, he called me impossible in the best way. He said I had never liked men who needed instruction manuals. Talia made a sharp little sound. Naomi looked down at her plate. Mara watched Elias. Elias did not react. He cut his food neatly and asked Cole how his daughter was doing. That one question changed Cole's posture. Only a little. Cole said she was good. He said parenting made men stronger if they were built for it. Then he leaned back and added that some men were built for peace because war would embarrass them. The table laughed wrong. Not altogether. A few quick sounds, then chairs moving, then silence trying to return wearing another face. Elias looked at me. I could have stopped it. I could have said Cole was being rude. I could have put one hand on Elias's arm and returned the room to him. Instead, I smiled. That was the worst part. Not the words. My smile gave the room permission to wonder if Cole had said something true. Elias asked if he could speak to me near the hallway before dessert. His voice stayed low. The quiet was the point. In the narrow hall outside the private room, a server passed with a tray of glasses, and Elias waited until we were alone. He asked whether I understood what this looked like on his birthday. He said Cole had been invited into a space that was supposed to be ours, and I was letting him use it. What he meant was that I was hurting him where people could see. What I heard was that he wanted to pull me back into the smaller version of myself. I told him he was proving my point by making attention look like a crime. I said he had always wanted respect without risking anything loud enough to earn it. I said maybe he should try being alive in the room instead of managing water glasses. His face changed by 1 inch. That was all. Back at the table, someone asked for a birthday speech before the cake came out. I raised my glass first because I did not want Elias to turn the mood solemn. The red wine had warmed my mouth and made each sentence feel cleaner than it was. I said Elias was kind, steady, safe. I said he was very good at not making trouble. A few people laughed because they needed to do something. Talia laughed first, but even she looked at Mara before she finished. I kept going because stopping would have admitted I had heard myself. I said some women got fireworks and some got excellent calendar reminders. I said Elias had never forgotten an appointment, which was almost romantic if a woman lowered her standards enough. Naomi set her glass down. Mara said my name, not loudly. Cole smiled behind his drink. That smile fed the ugliest part of me. He was not touching me. He did not need to. His approval sat beside me like heat. Then Elias removed the black leather watch. The buckle made one small sound. Leather against wood, metal against glass. He placed it beside his wine and looked at it for a moment instead of looking at me. The room turned thinner. For 1 second, the door inside me opened. Elias was not weak. He was sitting at his own birthday table while his wife measured him against an old boyfriend and pretended the ruler was honesty. I saw the watch on the table, the gift I had chosen because I wanted him to look stronger, and the way I had spent the whole night denying the kind of strength he actually had. I had not invited Cole to test Elias. I had invited Cole to create witnesses. It was plain enough to touch. Then Cole moved behind my chair and said I was still too alive for a quiet room. I smiled because the room was watching. Elias stood with his glass in his hand, and nobody reached for dessert. Elias did not clear his throat before he spoke. He did not tap the glass. He did not ask for attention like a man trying to win a room back. He simply stood, and the room gave itself to him because silence sometimes has better manners than noise. The burnt sugar smell from the dessert station moved through the doorway again. I remember that because nobody was eating yet. The cake sat untouched on a marble side table, the candles still unlit, the knife placed beside it like someone had expected a normal birthday. The thing is, a normal birthday was still possible until he started thanking people. He thanked Mara for coming after a double shift. He thanked Naomi for the wine. He thanked Talia for helping Simone make the night lively, though his voice gave the word no place to hide. Then he turned slightly toward Cole and thanked him most of all. Cole gave a short laugh, unsure whether he had been praised or placed. Elias said Cole had brought him a gift Simone could not wrap. Clarity. Nobody moved. He said he used to think I wanted him to be louder. He said he had tried, in his own failed way, to learn the difference between peace and absence. He said he knew he sometimes made love look like planning, and that was on him. That sentence cut because it was fair. Then he looked at me. He said he understood now that tonight was not about wanting him louder. It was about wanting him smaller. The room moved away from me before anyone stood up. Talia looked down. Naomi's hand left her glass. Mara's mouth tightened, not with surprise, but with the awful relief of someone hearing a name for a thing she already knew. Elias did not accuse me of cheating. He did not call Cole anything. That made it worse. A loud insult would have given me something to reject. He gave facts small enough to fit in every witness's hand. He said he had watched his own birthday become an audition for another man. He said his wife had invited the judge, written the question, and then called him insecure for noticing the room had been arranged against him. Julian's phone was still low near his plate. His thumb touched the screen once. I saw the red dot and told myself he was filming Cole, not me. I told Elias he was embarrassing me. My voice sounded too sharp for the room. Elias looked at the watch beside his glass. He said I had already done that for both of us. Nobody laughed. Not even Cole. Elias picked up the watch and held it in his palm. He said I had bought him something that looked strong on his wrist, then spent the evening proving I did not believe strength could be quiet. His thumb moved once over the leather strap. He said he would not compete for respect in a room where his wife had invited the judge. That was the line people remembered later. I know because Mara repeated it once in a message she did not send to me. Cole stepped back from my chair. Not far. Far enough. That small distance was his first honest act of the night. Elias thanked the restaurant staff. He took out his card before anyone could offer. He paid the bill with the calm of a man closing an account. Then he placed the black leather watch beside my plate. He did not put it on. Mara followed him first. Naomi stood next and said she needed air, though we were already near the open hall. Talia stayed seated but stopped looking entertained. Cole picked up his drink and found nothing useful inside it. I stayed because leaving would have looked like losing. The bathroom mirror had a gold rim and a small water spot near the corner. I stood there with both hands on the sink, staring at the red dress as if the dress had made the decision. 2 sinks. 1 mirror. No applause left. For half a minute I saw myself like a client room after the lights came on. Too arranged, too obvious. Every object placed to guide the eye toward one conclusion. Then Talia texted asking if I was okay. Not calling. Texting. I typed that Elias had made a performance out of being hurt. I typed that calm men always knew how to make women look loud. I typed too much and sent it anyway. Talia answered with 3 dots that vanished twice before one line appeared. She said the toast had been intense. Intense. Not wrong, not unfair, not iconic. When I came out, Cole was near the coat stand. He said Elias had gone hard. He said he had not meant for the night to get that serious. That serious. As if seriousness were a weather problem and not something he had helped drag through the door. I told him Elias had wanted an audience for his dignity. Cole said maybe everyone needed sleep. Everyone. Not us. At home, the hallway smelled like cold air and the lemon cleaner Elias used when he could not sleep. His shoes were by the door, placed neatly. His jacket was on the chair. He was on the sofa with one folded blanket, not dramatic, not wounded in a way I could use. I told him he had ruined his own birthday. He said the night was not the first time. It was only the first time I had given everyone else a clear view. That sentence stayed in the walls after he stopped speaking. In the morning, the watch was gone from my plate, and Elias's side of the closet was half empty. 3 days after the birthday, the house sounded like paper. Boxes opening, tape pulling, drawer slides moving in short, careful bursts. Elias had taken time off work, though he never said that to me. He was simply there on a Tuesday morning in a grey sweater, labelling 2 boxes on the dining table. Personal documents. Work files. The thing is, labels can be more violent than shouting when the person writing them has stopped asking to be understood. I stood in the doorway with coffee I had made too strong. 2 boxes. 1 marker. No useful way to call it a mood. I told him he was being theatrical. He capped the marker and placed it beside the boxes. Even that small motion looked finished. He said he was not interested in another fight. He said he wanted one honest answer. That should have worried me. Elias did not ask for honesty unless he had already stopped expecting it. He asked whether I invited Cole because I wanted Cole there, or because I wanted Elias to look weak beside him. No anger, no raised voice. Final and clean. I wanted to say Cole was nothing. I wanted to say the birthday had gotten out of hand. I wanted to say Talia had pushed the idea, and the wine had been heavy, and everyone had laughed, so it could not have been as cruel as he made it sound. Instead, I answered a different question. I told him he had made me feel loved in private, but invisible in public. The room did not reject the sentence. That was how I knew it was true. Elias looked toward the window. Outside, rain moved down the glass in thin, crooked lines. He did not deny it. He did not tell me he had praised me enough. He did not bring up the notes in paint books, the late coffee, the repaired studio wall, the heel cap, the birthday reservation, the life he had built around details I kept pretending were not desire. He only said he was sorry for that. The apology had nowhere to go. For a few seconds there was a door. Not forgiveness, not repair, just a place where the conversation could have become honest instead of useful. Then I used the true thing like a knife. I said maybe if he had ever made me feel like a woman in front of people, I would not have needed proof from someone else. I said he loved like a maintenance plan, and then acted shocked when I wanted heat. I said calm men loved calling themselves safe because it made women look cruel for wanting more. His hand moved toward the marker, then stopped. That was the quiet decision marker, not the boxes, not the half-empty closet. The hand stopping before it picked up the marker again. He had almost continued labeling while I spoke, then chose not to share even that small task with the conversation. He said he could have heard that before I turned his birthday into evidence. I told him evidence was his favorite language. He looked at me then, and for once the calm did not look like patience. It looked like distance with a door handle. He said he would handle everything properly now. No legal words, no threat. Procedure. That was the threat. The next day, I tried a controlled apology. Not real enough to cost me, real enough to test the room. I made coffee and placed his mug near the window, where he used to stand while checking weather reports. I told him the dinner had gone too far and that Cole had been inappropriate. Elias asked if I was sorry for inviting Cole, or sorry that Cole had failed to make him look weak. That question made the coffee taste like metal. I told him he was making it impossible to repair anything because he needed to win the moral room. He said he was not trying to win. He was trying to stop standing where I kept placing him. I reached for empathy then because anger had stopped working. I told him I knew he had been hurt. I said I had felt unseen for months. I said maybe we had both failed. All correct enough to sound adult. Then I added that if he had not humiliated me with that toast, people would not be talking. His face closed. The fake compromise failed because I still wanted the injury shared equally. Elias heard it. Of course he heard it. He had been hearing the missing parts for years. Mara came by that evening with a small bag of his things from her apartment. I did not know he had been staying there. She stood in our entryway and did not remove her coat. Her hair was tied back badly, and she looked tired enough to be honest. She asked if I understood what he looked like after the birthday. I told her Elias had always been good at looking wounded. Mara said he had not looked wounded. He had looked done. I said families always protected their own version. She looked past me to the dining table, where the boxes sat labelled and sealed. She said I kept calling it protection because I did not like the word witness. Then she left without waiting for my answer. That sentence bothered me more than it should have. I texted Talia while standing in the hallway. I wrote that Mara was acting like I had planned a murder instead of a messy dinner. Talia answered hours later with a thumbs up. No joke. No voice note. No fire. Just a yellow hand where a person used to be. Cole answered faster. He said he hoped I had not made things too serious at home. He said he did not want to be pulled into marriage drama. He said Elias seemed like the type to keep score. Marriage drama. The phrase sat there cheap and clean. Cole had been willing to be the contrast when the room made him look powerful. Now that the room had turned official in tone, he wanted to become background. I told myself he was nervous. I told myself anyone would be careful after Elias's performance. I told myself people protected themselves when things became unfair. That night, Elias did not come home. He sent one message saying he would collect the remaining items later in the week. No explanation, no argument, no location. The silence was not sulking. By then, I understood that much. I just understood it too late to use it. The mediation office was on the third floor of a building that smelled like printer toner, wet wool, and burnt coffee. I arrived 10 days after the birthday expecting a conversation about space, maybe accounts, maybe who would stay in the house while Elias cooled down enough to miss me properly. The thing is, I still thought absence was a tactic, because tactics were what I understood. Elias was already there. Mara sat beside him with her hands folded around a paper cup. She did not look angry. That made her harder to fight. On the table in front of Elias sat a blue folder and the black leather birthday watch. One folder. One watch. No Talia in the waiting room. A clerk asked my name and handed me a packet. I took it with both hands because one hand did not feel steady enough, though nobody had asked. The top page named the document clearly: Petition for Dissolution of Marriage with Temporary Financial and Property Orders. Under it was a notice for the first case management hearing, dated 3 weeks from that morning. I read the heading twice. Then I placed the packet on my lap and smoothed the corner with my thumb, the way Elias used to smooth restaurant reservations when he wanted a night to go well. The mediator sat across from us and said the petition included a timeline of the marriage breakdown, birthday video, group chat invitation, messages with Cole, witness statements from Mara and Naomi. No new miracle, no secret trap, just the room I had built, written down in order. I said Elias was punishing me because I embarrassed him. The mediator asked whether I disputed inviting Cole after Elias had questioned the invitation. My mouth opened, then closed around nothing useful. Mara looked at the floor. Cole texted during the meeting. He wrote that he did not want to be dragged into this and that I had made the night weird. By lunch, his profile picture had disappeared from our chat. I moved into a furnished apartment with beige rental art and a sofa that scratched the back of my legs. The temporary order froze the renovation account until the hearing. Naomi stopped inviting me to dinners, and Talia sent careful messages that never used Elias's name. Cole blocked me after Mara's attorney requested his messages through disclosure. At the studio, one private event referral vanished after Julian's birthday video moved quietly through people who still smiled at me in person. I had thought public attention would keep me from becoming invisible. Of course, I had confused visibility with safety. I built a room where my husband would look small, then watched that same room hand him every clean fact he needed to leave me. The thing I called power was only exposure with better lighting. The black leather watch was back on Elias's wrist when he walked out. I invited my ex to prove my husband was small, and all I proved was where I belonged.